Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and so it's been a few days since the last Tory scandal, so I suppose we were about due, with William Wragg having to admit he was caught in a sexting honey trap. The more serious matter here is that he compromised the safety of fellow MPs. So I have to say, this is it's quite a remarkable Easter recess so far. Political news stories tend to die down a little when Parliament is in recess. Politicians can't meet and cause trouble, and obviously they're not debating or voting on any legislation either. But the news is still coming thick and fast. We've got a changing situation on the Israel-Gaza conflict, which obviously wouldn't die down due to a recess in a parliament thousands of miles away. But also the True Blue app scandal, the Thames Water scandal, the scandal of more cuts coming for the arts, the scandal of the NHS budget, which the government don't want to address. And on top of all of this, we have the Tory psychodramas, terrible campaigning, and now another Tory sex scandal. And so although the Tories ejected the scandal grower-in-chief, Boris Johnson, the party still has this conveyor belt of sleaze and scandals to cope with. This was another feature of 1997, where the Tories were drowning in sleaze. Only this time it's way worse. I mean, back in 97, the things that mostly I remember are the Cash for Questions scandal and someone sucking David Mellor's toe. This latest one is a sexting honey trap, which is currently centred on the Tory MP William Wragg. He got involved in this honey trap, then allowed himself to be blackmailed into passing on the personal details of other MPs. He's also someone seen by Johnson's supporters as being instrumental in bringing him down. So, of course, they all have their knives out for him, where otherwise they'd be downplaying the situation. Oh, he's not that serious, stop making a fuss. So there doesn't seem to be any closing of the ranks to protect Wragg here from the wider party, although there is from the leadership, who has admitted everything, as well as the seriousness of the situation anyway. In fact, the Daily Mail had to take time out of their busy schedule having a pop at Angela Rayner for selling a house to splash this scandal all over their front page today. So now even Tory MPs are calling for Wragg to resign. I mean, he's not a minister, but he is the chair of a select committee. Now, Rishi Sunak can't force him to resign from that, but, you know, you'd think to yourself, why would this matter? It's partly because of what we don't know. That is, who's behind this? It's been reported as a fairly basic phishing scam, not that sophisticated, because only 2 mobile phone numbers were used. Neither were registered in the UK, of course. We know that the scammer or scammers were trying to get important people like MPs, but also journalists and political advisors, to send them compromising images, explicit photos, basically, in order to use them for blackmail. We know that they succeeded in at least some cases. We know that Wragg himself allowed himself to be blackmailed into revealing the contact details of other MPs. Now, any sort of large-scale operation intended to get compromising information on MPs and those influential in policy is very serious. But who's behind it? It could be an unfriendly foreign state. What if it's Russia behind this? Or it might just be someone with a major financial interest in public contracts or who wants insider information. William Wragg is the chair of the select committee which scrutinises civil service administration, basically. Like all chairs of select committees, he will be privy to information not normally made public. That could be valuable to someone. Was he being targeted for this information in someone's financial interests? Or because the honey trap seems to have cast its net really wide, was it that they weren't particularly interested in Wragg other than for the information he could give them about other MPs that they are interested in? You know, I'm sort of seeing talk of calls for MPs being required to undergo like digital security training. And you go, yeah, if this isn't already happening, absolutely they should. But that does raise a couple of questions to me. First of all, why haven't MPs already been given security training before? Because this isn't just about social media. That makes it, you know, you're bombarded with these phishing scams all the time with social media. But even before the rise of the internet even, MPs were always going to be targeted by foreign agents, malign players. Why hasn't it been standard for a long time that MPs are trained in avoiding getting themselves into these compromising situations? I mean, I know MPs have inductions. When MPs first become MPs, they have inductions. Right, okay, this is what is expected of you. This is what you can do. This is what you can't do. Why does no one say to them, by the way, you're now going to get a lot of people targeting you, trying to compromise you because you're important. Beware of it. And actually go through some of the examples. you know, and you'd think actually the first of those would be, don't take pictures of your willy and share it with people you don't know. But anyway, second, this was hardly a sophisticated scam, as we're told. You know, there was a public information video, I remember, aimed at like largely parents, but ultimately kids. A few years ago, it was aimed at persuading people not to engage in sexting, and it was called I Saw Your Willy. Funnily enough, it was produced at the same time as Wragg was being elected to Parliament. But how was it that an MP had a lower level of awareness than we expected school kids to have? It's like as a society we thought, oh, we need to explain to kids not to do these things. That's really important. Great, but we didn't think that of MPs? Or did they just assume that MPs had enough sense not to do such stupid bloody things? At which point you have to wonder how a Conservative government or House of Commons authorities fails to take account of what is fairly stereotypical Tory behaviour. Because, you know, although this is the sort of thing you couldn't rule out happening to MPs and other parties, if someone told you about this and they didn't mention any names, you would think, oh, we're talking about Tory MPs, aren't we here? Because it's exactly the sort of thing you'd think of Tory MPs doing, isn't it? It's that stereotype. So, given that that is a stereotype, why hasn't action been taken before? In reality, as I say, you know, it could happen to MPs of any party, but you just sort of know it mostly happens with Tories. It's so Tory. Shutting off the parts of their brain which deal with caution because they're as keen as mustard to get the tackle out. Seemingly heedless of the fact that as MPs, they're obviously going to be targeted by people who do not have the national interest at heart. Even foreign agents. I mean, I don't know which is more stupid. The MPs who get themselves involved in this and don't immediately report it to the authorities, or the authorities for not recognising the serious danger of idiot MPs compromising themselves and at least insisting they have lessons in how not to be an imbecile. I mean, I get how people might not think MPs in general need special training to tell them not to take photos of the tackle and send it to people they don't know or indeed anyone. But you'd think this was exactly the sort of training that male Tory MPs would especially need. And then there's the attitude to this from Wragg himself. So on the one hand, he's admitted everything, as far as I can tell. He's apologised. He said that he was weak. So, you know, you can sort of say, well, OK, he's not trying to downplay it here, is he? But then I was told in an interview, he said that it wasn't blackmail. And I thought, what on earth does he think blackmail is? He said himself he was compromised. That's his words. He was compromised. He said that, you know, they badgered him for contact details for people, and then he gave them what they asked for. I mean, that's blackmail, and that is succumbing to blackmail. Because what Wragg has done is quite openly to say he gave contact details of MPs out because someone wanted them, that and they had compromising stuff on him. So that means he must have known that the people he was giving these phone numbers to intended to use those numbers to get compromising stuff on those MPs as well. And that they were going to keep pushing this scam until they had compromising stuff on the MPs who could do them the most good. It's fairly clear what this is about. Target some MPs, try and get something on them, then get them to give you some more numbers, do the same with them, and slowly work towards the MPs you're really trying to blackmail. So he's consciously put fellow MPs, potentially the government, in danger just to cover up his own folly. I mean, yeah, sure, a full apology is absolutely better than trying to weasel out a responsibility. But this has to be taken seriously, doesn't it? You can't just say he's apologised and leave it. He should absolutely resign as chair of the Public Affairs Select Committee. The Standards Committee, I think, should surely be launching an investigation. And you might imagine that he would have the party whip withdrawn as well. Only, I see in the news today, that's not happening. Maybe because Sunak is the first leader the Tories have had for many years that Wragg has not publicly called to step down. I guess Sunak is conscious of removing the whip from likely allies. After all, he didn't even have the guts to do it with his enemies when they gave him ample excuse. But just to be clear, Wragg had already announced that he would not be contesting the next election. So this isn't an issue for the general election. There's no issue about whether he's their candidate. He'd already announced he's not going to be. He presumably didn't fancy being told he'd lost to the Lib Dems in the early hours of the morning on what might be a very cold sports hall if the Tories really do delay the election until November. But I wonder if Sunak and the Tory whips are considering The Boris Johnson Appreciation Society are out targeting Wragg until there are consequences for him. They've got their knives out. And by kicking up a stink about this, they'll be drawing public attention to yet more Tory sleaze. It's another excuse to expose bitter infighting within the party that those involved will be only too pleased to take advantage of. You know, I've said before, all governments endure scandals, all of them. Politics attracts bellends in all parties and reckless people as well. But functional governments tend to have maybe a couple of scandals a year, and most of them don't involve compromising national security. The Tories have them every few days. And you could say maybe this desensitises the public to the behaviour, but I'm not sure it's entirely good that the public begin to expect sleazy behaviour, especially when it's from one particular party. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe for further content and click the like button. You can also sign up for memberships if you'd like to support the channel further. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.